Guys, it's here! Finally, after years and years of outcry from a vocal minority of the internet, Nintendo is giving us what we were asking for. More remasters for a machine full of ports and remasters. Rebuilt from the ground up, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door HD is a faithful remaster of the GameCube original called Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door SD, the cult classic sequel to the culture classic or Nintendo 64 game Paper Mario: An Unexpected Journey. For years and years and years and years, there were so many discussions and videos calling this one of the best games of all time. The Paper Mario game that only didn't sell more than the newer games because the GameCube flopped, the Mario RPG everyone should play. You know, after all that big talk, people can pick this up and see for themselves if it meets those sky-high expectations. Or you can watch a video of some faceless weirdo telling you what to expect and if it's worth it or not. Is the absence of producer Kensuke Tanabe's cursed satin touch a blessing? Let's find out! Do I really need to say what the plot setup is? It's a Mario game. Well, alright. In this game, Princess Peach is on a vacation trip, then stops by a town full of shady business, pirates and pianta gangsters, discovers a treasure map, and then, you won't believe it, she gets kidnapped! Mario needs to rescue her and find 7 MacGuffins. What did you expect? It's a freaking Mario game! Okay, to elaborate more on that, Peach finds the map, she sends it with a letter to Mario, and he goes meet her in Rogueport. Except she's already kidnapped at this point. Mario gets help from an archaeology student, a female Goomba called Goombella, and her professor who lives in Rogueport. Together they find out this map is connected to the Thousand Year Door, a sealed door in the underground ruins of Rogueport, that can only be opened with the power of the 7 crystal stars. The map always points to the location of the next star when brought to the pedestal in front of the door, and from there Mario's journey begins for real. The game goes where the map points, hoping they will find out more about where Peach is and maybe get to the treasure hidden behind the big door. The script is very easy to follow, with a lot of humor without getting overbearing. Some of the jokes land, some don't, which is the usual for Mario RPGs. Even when the comedy falls flat, at least the characters are making paper jokes every 5 minutes, which makes me appreciate this pre-Sticker Star era of Paper Mario writing a lot more. It's Mario, so you know the dialogue and presentation is going to be very kid-friendly. At the same time, Thousand Year Door goes to some weird and dark places with the setting. There is references to real turf wars and mafia, sports doping, wrestling, and you can even make Mario die for real at one point. There's also a dragon with a food fetish. Some NPCs you meet that help you out aren't even very friendly, which I think is oddly refreshing. I'm pretty sure there's even an NPC who is vocal about how violently he wants to hurt some guy who owes him money. All this in a Mario game. If you played the first Paper Mario or really any other Paper Mario game, I'd say this one stands at the top when it comes to humor and including subtext that kids might not get but adults definitely will. And this is something that I can't remember ever being in a Mario game script since. They put effort into the characterization, although some definitely tie in with the main story a lot more than others. Goombella and Vivian tie in more, while the rest of the cast feels more like a lot of guests of the day going on. Depending on what partner you select to follow you, the partner dialogue changes too, which adds some flavor to it. They all have something different to say, but it's mostly just that character reacting to things and using different words to get the same conclusion in the scene. The game is split into chapters, like every Paper Mario. Each chapter has its own isolated story with its own bad guys and support characters. The only thing that ties into the main plot is the X-Nauts interfering at some point. The X-Nauts are the main antagonists, and they all look like Sid from Final Fantasy IV for some reason. This chapter structure isn't a negative, by the way, it works very well. It gives the game a very episodic feel. And because they're so self-contained, you don't have to worry about losing track of what's going on when picking the game back up after a long break. They do a rehash of the original Paper Mario's between chapter Peach segments. Between each chapter you get to see what's going on with Peach and control her for a little bit. You usually don't do a whole lot as Peach, but you know, it's still nice. It adds some depth to her character that you don't see in other Mario games. Overall, the dialogue doesn't get verbose and the stories are very cohesive. If you have some sense of humor, the game's narrative will keep your attention. The localization was completely redone to be closer to the Japanese script. If you play the GameCube's version a lot, you pick the differences up quickly and then vent about it in your Discord server. There's nothing wrong with it though, they even corrected a bit about Vivian's gender identity. People complain when the localization of games don't follow the Japanese nuances, so I hope you're all happy they did just that with this remaster. Don't make this a damn if they do, damn if they don't situation. The game features good old turn-based combat, with all sorts of simple button prompts to increase the effect or damage of the commands you select. It's like Super Mario RPG, but you know, with creative effort put into it. The game works with very low damage and HP scaling. I don't know why, but some people think that somehow makes the game more childish. I honestly think this is perfect for turn-based games. I want to easily calculate all the damage in my head while deciding what to do, so that I can know exactly the total need to finish a battle as quickly as possible, or even know exactly how much damage the enemies can do to me, so I can play my next few turns ahead of time. This works great for this type of game, and I wish more JRPGs would stop vomiting ridiculous number porn all over my screen 2 hours in instead. Not all players get a boner from seeing big damage. The game isn't super difficult, but it can get punishing if you mess up your input, especially for parrying attacks. It's also very flexible, since you're the one who picks what to increase when leveling up and you have a very long list of badges to buy or collect. The badges are the number one reason why I like this game so much. It was great in the first Paper Mario, but they took that system and went total ham with it in Thousand Year Door. You have a lot more badges and you can increase your BP up to 99. This lets you experiment with all kinds of builds affecting Mario or his partners. The leveling system and the badges give this game some pretty decent replayability, and since you can change up your badges and reset your stats, even if you don't care for min-maxing your RPGs, you can still use this to solve your problems or get unstuck on difficult battles. You can change your badge loadout anytime, but resetting your HP, FP, and BP costs money. It is possible to stack multiple of the same badges together. You can do some really broken builds this way, like equipping so many close call badges that Mario becomes nearly unkillable, or stacking Power Rush to kill a boss in one turn. And yeah, you have to spend a long time grinding to get those duplicate badges, but you know what? If the grind has a payoff, I don't mind grinding. And with how overpowered some of the stacked badges get, it definitely feels like the time you spend grinding is worth it in the end. Is it necessary though? Not really. You don't need to be any sort of expert to complete the game without focusing on leveling up or going after every little badge out there. The battle is almost as tactical as it is about the minigame style button pressing. It's just fun to experiment builds, just like in Final Fantasy V or any halfway decent JRPG. There's also this thing called Super Guard, which completely nullifies damage if you time your button press right. The timing is really tight. It takes practice, but because it exists, you don't even need to pick a lot of HP increases when leveling up. I spent almost the entire game with less than 40 HP, because really you don't need any more than, I don't know, 30 HP to beat the game. That's actually great. This game gives you all these ways that you can boost Mario's ability in very significant ways, but it doesn't demand you do any specific combination to get to the ending, keeping that raw experience fully functional. So that is possible. You can do that in video games. See? Naoki Yoshida. It's also worth noting that most broken badge combinations usually come with a caveat of only working if Mario has less than 6 HP left. Between that and Super God being an all or nothing type of parry, there is a clear hint of risk versus reward philosophy behind Thousand Year Door systems. Not everything about the battle system is great. In this game, the battle arena is literally a stage, like a theater stage. It has its own audience of NPCs watching and everything. The audience is an important mechanic because every time you do your action commands well, they cheer, and their cheer fills your special gauge. You can then spend that gauge using special moves you unlock with each crystal star you collect in the story. The audience can also randomly throw things at you. Most of the time it's bad stuff like rocks. You have to press a button quickly to whack it often. This doesn't waste your turn, but it's a bit annoying and adds up with all the other stage gimmicks. Sometimes a lamp or a caterpillar might fall from the ceiling, and if it hits you, you get dizzy or something. Or these fog machines on stage could malfunction and freeze the enemy. Or you. Or the actual stage fog gets thick and you can't hit anything until it wears off, or you waste your turn doing something to blow the fog away. This means in any battle there may or may not be bad RNG screwing you over or make you take longer to finish. I don't think having random accidents getting in the way of the combat was a good idea. And having more possible accidents based on how high your level is feels almost like being punished for leveling up too much, which is kinda stupid. Thankfully the chances of an accident are low and most battles are ending quickly if you know what you're doing. RPG or not, this is a Mario game. You move around, talk to NPCs, collect and buy and use items like in any RPG, but you can also jump, hammer things, and people. You do a lot of platforming, but let me tell you, platforming this or any Paper Mario game just feels miserable. If you want to have a lot of platforming in your game, make sure the character actually moves and jumps like a platformer game character. And worse still, because Mario is paper thin, sometimes it's hard to align yourself with where you want to land. To spice up the exploration segments a bit, you unlock origami transformations that turn Mario into a paper airplane or making flip to walk through tight passages and a few other things. You can only activate 2 of them anywhere, while the others can only be used when standing at the activation panels. I guess you can think of them as traversal vehicles more so than abilities that add anything to your ability to move around. There's also a casino where you can play minigames focused on those transformations, which are kinda fun. You'll need to complete some of the rogue part side quests to unlock the minigames though. Interestingly, in spite of the general gameplay loop focused on reading and battling, each chapter has a different progression style. In one chapter you're helping some kind of detective investigation, in another you're climbing the ranks of a WrestleMania SKU tournament, or in another you're escorting a bunch of creatures Pikmin style. What they all have in common, unfortunately, is the backtracking. I have to mention here because this is a hot topic for any discussion about Thousand Year Door. The game's level design is very narrow, literally. You go back and forth a lot. The remake makes things significantly better by adding warp pipes in a room under Rogue Port that lets you teleport straight to the main town of each chapter, then adds a warp point to the chapter that suffered the most from the excessive backtracking in the original game. The new warp pipes are one of the best new features, but I gotta point out, they missed a golden opportunity here. If you look at the roadmap, it looks very much like a classic Mario level select menu, showing where you are in the island. They could have made it so you could actually warp to one of those spots in the map. Oh, well, maybe in the next game. If you come into this after playing the newer Paper Mario games, the level layouts might seem like a big step back. In that case, your enjoyment of the gameplay will rely heavily on how much you enjoy the combat. Stage gimmicks aside, I think this features the best battle system of all Mario RPGs. Paper Mario uses stylized graphics to make all characters look like they're literal paper cutouts with animation. Both the Nintendo 64 and GameCube games age pretty well thanks to this aesthetic, but the series still evolved the style with each new entry. Origami King took the papercraft direction to a new level and, would you know it, going for hyperrealism actually benefited Paper Mario, as in making everything look realistically like it's made of papercraft, cardboard, and other arts and crafts stuff. As you can tell, the remake borrows some of that evolution from Origami King without straying too far from Thousand Year Door's original vision. The graphics overall looks amazing, although it looks kinda like that came at the cost of performance. The original game ran smooth 60 frames per second, the remake is locked to 30 frames. It didn't affect my ability to do the action commands successfully. I even got a lot more comfortable with Super Guard than I ever was in the original version. The performance loss is a bummer, but that's all it is. It's easy to get used to it. What never got any easier for me though was the motion blur. Just why? Why do studios keep adding motion blur you can't turn off in their games? There are a few scenes in the game where NPCs will move through the screen with their dialogue box, following them like a speech bubble. I can't read those at all in this version of the game, thanks to the freaking blur. It gives me eye strain. Seriously, just stop doing this. Stop! Nobody likes it! If you like motion blur, then I'm sorry, you're not real. You're just a dream of the faith. Props to the team for keeping the relatively smooth animation with the characters, by the way. For some reason, the modern Paper Mario team thinks paper characters should be animated in 3 frames per second or something. I never cared too much about the soundtrack of Paper Mario games. There will be a couple tracks standing out in each game, but for the most part, I just thought they range from "this exists" to "this sounds bad actually." Don't forget to click the dislike button! Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the soundtrack in Paper Mario in general. Best I can say is the music always fits the situation. Thousand Year Door HD has turned the tables. When I read people complain about the new arrangements, I was ready to continue not to care. By the time I was done with the first battle segment, I was honestly impressed. The arrangements, most of them, just slap. I can see why some fans might not like them. A lot of the tracks were arranged to get more jazzy and highly produced, while the original was predominantly more subdued and synthetic. It's admittedly a wired shift from the original direction. Do I care though? Not really. Like I said, I don't even like the original soundtrack much. I love the new direction. The high production is exactly my style, and I especially like the arrangements with chorus and strings added to them. They made it so the battle theme has a different arrangement based on the area you're in. They fit the area motifs nicely, but some of them go a little crazy with the energy. I have to admit that. So, Paper Mario Thousand Year Door HD is definitely the definitive way to play the game, definitely, and will remain so indefinitely. Anyway, I'm sure when Switch 2, the switching, is launched next year, this game will have some kind of performance boost. Either way, this is a really good entry point JRPG featuring Mario characters that has some pretty rough edges. And yeah, as I said, JRPGs, deal with it! It's my favorite of the Mario RPGs for sure. I love it for the combat system, the customization you get with the badge variety and 99 BB cap. I love the humor, and the cast of original characters is pretty good. but I wouldn't call it the second coming like so many fans do. The platforming doesn't feel anywhere near as good as a normal Mario game. The forced backtracking was reduced by the new warp pipes, but it's still there as something we will deal with in every chapter. And the stage arena gimmicks add a layer of RNG that might not be very desirable. The story and characters have a lot of charm, and by Mario standards, the humor is pretty spot on. The dark portion of the game's world and narrative should be really interesting to go through your first time around. A contrast from the platforming games, that's for sure. Just because I love a game doesn't mean I'm gonna call that game perfect. That's not how this works. I recommend this with a huge asterisk due to those road attributes I mentioned. Keep your expectations in check, and don't let all the people who think this is the best game ever influence you. That's all I had to say. Thanks for watching and take care.